Thank you. Thank you so much. That was so touching. If you only knew how much that meant to me, Dr. Rosenfeld, who part of the reason I'm here is to pay my respects to you and all you've done for medical media. You've made it possible for us to do the job that we do today. So how about another warm round of applause for Dr. Rosenfeld? It's a really tremendous honor for me to be here tonight, a real treat for me as well. I am delighted in part to be here because I care so deeply about the same things that so many of you care about in this room. And you know, when you think about the work of Dr. Rosenfeld, you think about the medical journalists, it is sometimes an awkward dance between medicine and media, but it is one that we take very, very seriously. I gotta say, first of all, it's kind of a little strange to be in front of real live people. I don't get to do this very often. Usually you're sitting in a studio and it's a couple of guys with duct tape all over them and it's really quiet and they're motioning to you when you're live and when you're not. And sometimes you forget, or they forget to tell you. And one time I was actually anchoring a show and they were supposed to tell me that I was now live on camera and they forgot to tell me I actually had taken a bite of cake because it was one of the producers' birthday, so I literally had a bite of cake in my mouth when we came back. And it was embarrassing enough, and even more so given that it was a childhood obesity segment. But it is easy to forget sometimes that people watch this stuff. You wear an earpiece. Dr. Rosenfeld knows this. You wear an earpiece. Did you wear an earpiece when you were doing live television? Perhaps, maybe. Do you need one now? Sorry. Sorry. You wear this earpiece, and this was the hardest thing to get used to when you're doing television. People are talking to you while you're trying to talk, and I don't know how you get used to that. I remember people when I started doing this, they would always say something to me like, "You look too serious." And I'm sitting there doing an interview. "You look too serious" would come in my earpiece, and it was very distracting. And then a few minutes later, it'd be followed by, "What are you grinning at?" or something like that. Or more energy. You need more energy. That you got to love that one. They never say that to Wolf Blitzer, by the way, ever. I really feel privileged to be a part of this field. Our collective field, Dr. Rosenfeld and I, medicine and media. I think in many ways, as disparate as they seem, they're really along the same spectrum. I think there's a lot of similarities between the two. You have to do your homework all the time. We take our jobs very seriously. If you make a mistake or an error, it means a lot. People sometimes change their lives based on the reports that you give. And if you do it right, people can live longer and more functional lives. And that can be very, very gratifying. I think media can do more than simply report on medical developments. A lot of the work that's done in this room, for example, we try and not only report on it, but to do more than that. We're getting to the point where I think we can, in a sense, use media to broaden the peer review process. I think that this is a very exciting part of it. If you can broaden that peer review process so everyone really has a voice. You can also create a more inclusive, contributing community for scientists and researchers all over the world. You never know where the next great development, the next great research is going to come from. I think media can help give a voice to lots of people, lots of labs, lots of contributors right in this room and anywhere around the world. And I think they can help make all of that happen much faster. If you're someone, for example, who you yourself or a loved one suddenly is confronting a medical illness, you want to get as much content, as much knowledge about that that's credible as quickly as possible. And I think media can help with that. I think I can also speak on behalf of all people that work in the medical media to say that we're truly privileged to do what we do. But we also realize that with our jobs comes tremendous responsibility as well. I think we are in the medical media world, and we should be held to a higher standard. I mean, people make changes sometimes based on these reports, big changes, small changes, but always important changes. And I think there's something else as well, and that is that this whole notion that we live in a disease treatment society, but we want to live in a culture of prevention can be fostered and nurtured through the media as well if we do our jobs right. And again, this is something I take very seriously. Thank you, yeah. You know, in order to tell the stories that we tell, we're invited into people's homes, and people share with us the stories of their lives. They're intimate, and sometimes they're at particularly difficult times in their lives, and that also is a great privilege. It's a really treasured and sacred bond, I think, between reporter and subject to tell these types of stories, and I think, again, in the medical media world, it is particularly important to get that context absolutely right. You know, I'm often asked how I describe my job as a medical reporter. I mean, what exactly do we do? And the way I describe it sometimes to my kids or my friends is that, you know, I think of myself as someone who teaches to some extent through showing things, through demonstrating. I think of myself as a journalist who is informed through my own medical training and hopefully more useful to the people who watch these reports. And I think of myself as someone who helps create these conversations that otherwise would not happen. And it is, again, it is some of the most gratifying work that I've ever been able to do. Our greatest triumph, I think, as medical reporters comes when we feel that there has been some sort of impact, which is why this award tonight means so much to me. Whether it is concerns about a new medication, a new procedure, something that you want to know because it's directly confronting society, or decreasing the biggest killer in our society, heart disease. There are ways that we can do that without any significant medical breakthroughs with what we know now, tremendously reducing heart disease. And I think it's something that, you know, we should be reporting on constantly, really beating the drum on. Sometimes it involves being on the ground in some of the hottest and most dangerous places in the world. As Dr. Rosenfeld mentioned, you know, I've been in Iraq, I've been in Afghanistan, I was in Japan, and I've been in Haiti. And I think what comes out of those sometimes is a reminder that we live in a truly global society where it is not something that is simply a good idea, but it is absolutely mandatory to take care of those who cannot take care of themselves right here at home and everywhere around the world, because there are people suffering and there is so much more that we can do. Sometimes by simply telling their stories, we stir up a little bit more compassion and we stir a little less complacency and hopefully compel people to act in some way. Again, thank you so much for having me. This honor, you know, as a reporter, it's impact, it's what we measure ourselves by, and as a result, you can understand how much this award means to me. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.